My opponents can say whatever they like about me. I'm going to stay focused on you.
Expectations for the Liberal leader were low from the start, and all eyes were on Justin Trudeau during that first debate. Could he do it? Was he ready? Since then, he's climbed in the polls, promising openness, transparency, and 3 years of deficits. We met in a park across the river from Parliament Hill.
Well, a lot of Canadians, the surveys say 70%, suggest they want change. So if you're lucky enough to be Prime Minister after October 19th, what immediate change will they see from you?
Well, I mean, from the very beginning, I've talked about how we're going to strengthen the middle class in this country. We need to grow the economy in a way that works for most Canadians. And for 10 years, Mr. Harper has neglected that.
Well, that's your message, but those kind of things take time. Those don't happen right away. What's the immediate change they would see?
A government that's focused on Canadians, a government that's answering questions, a government that's talking about the things that matter to Canadians and actually acting on them. Government that's open to discussion and debate, and a government that is focused on the long term and not the electoral interests of the immediate.
Well, if there's going to be change, the two major players vying for agent of change are you and Tom Mulcair. What's the difference?
It couldn't be clearer right now.
Well, make it clear. What, a lot of Canadians are not making the distinction. They want to try and understand what's the difference.
Well, the difference is Mr. Mulcair wants to continue with Mr. Harper's budget plan. Mr. Mulcair is committing to balancing the budget no matter what next year, which means he's going to have to cut, which means he's going to have to back off on some of the promises he's been making if he's going to achieve that. There's a huge difference between them, who are proposing cuts and even austerity, and the Liberal Party, which is proposing that what we all know, which is that confident countries invest in their own future, and that's what we're going to do.
Some have suggested, I heard that somebody used the term the other day, that you're trying to out-socialize the socialists, that you're outflanking or trying to outflank the NDP on the left by promising a deficit over the next 3 years.
Actually, what we're promising, what we're building a plan around is the need for growth in this country, and it's economic growth that we need. I'm not worried too much about left-right spectrum. I'm worried about what's actually going to work to help Canadians who are worried about their own jobs, about their kids' jobs.
But traditionally, this is a political game too. Traditionally, the NDP have occupied that ground and have not been as concerned about deficits as other parties. Here, there's been a role reversal, or there appears to be one.
I'm focused on what actually matters. No, I'll let folks like you try to place us on a political spectrum. I'm focused on telling Canadians that we have a real plan and we have a really extraordinary team to deliver that plan.
Well, there is one other thing about deficits. I can remember it was a former finance minister, I think, who said to me about deficits that it's hard to promise to eliminate a deficit, easy to promise to create one. The problem is ensuring it doesn't balloon. Now, how are you going to do that? You're using the $10 billion a year figure for 3 years.
Yeah.
Now, how are you going to keep it at that when there are all other kinds of things at play?
Well, first of all, let's look at this current string of deficits that we're in because of Mr. Harper. Now, Mr. Harper has tried to cut in a whole bunch of different ways. He's underspent $1 billion from Aboriginal affairs. He's underspent $1 billion on our veterans. He continues to try and cut our way out of deficit, and that doesn't work because he's been unable to create growth. He has the worst record on growth of any prime minister in 80 years. You have to go back to the Great Depression.
But he went through a deficit infrastructure program of tens of billions of dollars. That created no growth?
Well,
why would yours create growth if his couldn't?
Because we're focused on the things that actually are going to matter to Canadians. We're not focused on helping ridings that we need help in. We're focused on responding to the concerns of municipalities and provinces. We need to make sure that our infrastructure and our capacity to respond to the challenges of the future is at its highest level if we're going to grow.
If you become Prime Minister after October 19th, you arrive at a time where the dollar's in the mid-70s in relation to the US dollar. Oil's somewhere in the mid-40s. We are officially in a recession. What's the first thing you do on the economy?
One of the first things we do that I've committed
the
to.
first thing.
Call together the premiers, talk about climate change, get to Paris at the end of November with a plan towards reducing our emissions in responsible ways. At the same time as we talk with the premiers about interprovincial trade barriers, about the infrastructure projects they need.
So you need all these other men and women at the table to make those first decisions on the economy that you and your government would make? You'd need all the first ministers?
No, our decisions are already made about lowering taxes, about sending more child benefits, about immediately stepping up on veterans benefits. We've got a platform that we're going to get into place right now. But in order to build the kind of prosperous future that this country needs, we need to move away from the kind of solo leadership that Mr. Harper has specialized in, where he won't talk to the provinces, where he will not engage in partnerships with municipalities, and realize that it's about time Canada started pulling together to address the very real challenges we're facing.
All right, let me ask you specifically on a number of programs that the Harper government has put in, about what you would do with them, because you talk about growth and in trying to encourage growth in the Canadian economy, but you're probably also going to have to make some decisions on expenditures in some cases, and you've hinted at a couple here already. But let's do a yes or no on a couple of kind of key planks of their economic picture of the last couple of years, and whether or not you'd keep these programs or get rid of them or alter them. So first up, well, you mentioned the child care benefit. Mm-hmm. You'd keep the program but alter it.
We'd make it so that the child benefit checks are bigger but tax-free for everyone earning less than $150,000 in family income.
And I assume this would be something that would be upfront, first budget?
First budget already kick in, yeah.
All right. The TFSAs, the tax-free savings account?
We think that at the level of about $5,000 a year is responsible.
So cut those
The doubling it is irresponsible. It's only the wealthiest Canadians who have $10,000 laying around at the end of the year that they can put into that.
All right. The corporate tax rate?
Corporate taxes are fine. We're competitive. We need to remain competitive. We're not going to be raising them the way the NDP will, and that's why we're going to leave corporate taxes where they are.
Small business tax rates?
I think small businesses should be paying less taxes. We just have to make sure that it's done the right way.
So there could be a cut for small business?
We'll probably have things to say about it, but we have to know that a large percentage of small businesses are actually just ways for wealthier Canadians to save on their taxes, and we want to reward the people who are actually creating jobs and contributing in concrete ways. So there's a little tweaking to do around that.
GST, would you touch the GST?
Nah, Canadians pay enough taxes right now. We're not going to raise it at all.
Well, there are other things you could do with it. You could lower it.
I think we're okay where we are right now.
Okay, the final big one of their promises, income splitting.
Yeah, we're committed to repealing it, and that actually is folding into our Canada Child benefit. Income splitting benefits only 15%, mostly the wealthiest Canadians, but it's paid for by everyone.
Do you think the money exists for you to do all the things you want to do, including the changes you want to make?
Yes, our platform is absolutely fully costed. Now is the time to actually invest in our country and invest in our future.
Openness and transparency. You have raised the issue, as has Mr. Mulcair, about Mr. Harper's government, about how open they are or not open, and how transparent or not transparent they've been, and questioning their basic management, not only of the economy, but of government. The reason I find that somewhat ironic is that's exactly how he got to power, by questioning those same areas on your party. So what are Canadians to think of the Liberal Party now making those same judgments about the Conservatives?
Well, one of the things that we've seen throughout the past decades in government is the trend towards more control from the Prime Minister's office actually can be traced as far back as my father, who kicked it off in the first place. And I think we've reached the end point.
Are you suggesting that it was your father who started sort of tighter control with the PMO?
I think that's generally understood that he started it.
Yeah, I know it is generally
which is
understood, but it's not generally assumed that you would say that as well.
Oh yeah, no, I recognize that. And I think I actually quite like the symmetry of me being the one who ended that. My father had a particular way of doing things. I have a different way. And his was suited to his time, mine is suited to my time. I think part of the problems, what we're seeing in the kind of government and plan that Mr. Harper's put forward, is he's disconnected from the reality that people are facing every day.
How would you stay connected to the reality that people are facing every day?
Well, first of all, empower my MPs to actually be voices for their communities in Ottawa and not just my voice in their community.
Everybody says that.
Well, you know what? No, not everybody says that, because Mr. Harper has demonstrated a level of discipline and message control that means that 95% of his candidates
when they're coming
won't
in,
debate.
when they're campaigning for office, that's what they say, just what you're saying. But how do you make it happen if you win?
Well, I'm actually of a different generation, and I've demonstrated concretely, for example, in months after I became leader, I started proactive disclosure. So every MP within my party, and the senators at the time as well, because they were still under my control, started posting their expenses online. And other parties followed suit, and now the Parliament of Canada actually posts all of its expenses online in a way that wouldn't have happened if we hadn't taken concrete action on this.
Has your party changed?
The party had to change.
No, I mean, obviously you're a different kind of leader than the last one or the last two, perhaps the last three. But has the party changed? It was that party, it wasn't one person that Canadians threw out, it was the Liberal Party.
Oh,
So
and it happened
how do you convince Canadians that the Liberal Party has changed?
Well, I mean, and that happened over a series of elections where we just kept dropping and dropping and dropping in the polls because the Liberal Party had turned away from Canadians. It turned inwards. It was jockeying for who gets to be leader and infighting and factionalism, whereas it wasn't focused on actually serving Canadians anymore. And what we've changed over the past 3 years is a party that re-engages. We're reaching out across the country to bring in great candidates. I mean, that's the one thing about bringing in great candidates. It's not, part of it is about showing that the Liberal Party is in fact ready to form an extraordinarily efficient and capable government right away on October 20th. But it's also about reminding Canadians that we're supposed to be drawing good people into politics.
C-51. Where is it on your priority list? You supported it, but with the condition that you were going to change it if you had the opportunity to. So how far up that first day's priority list is changing C-51, and what would you change?
It's right up there. What we'd actually change is we'd bring in proper oversight by parliamentarians so that we have a parliamentary committee tasked with overseeing all of our national security agencies, which not only makes sure that there aren't excesses that are unjustifiable, but it also makes sure that our agencies are doing everything they need to keep Canadians safe.
How soon in a new
Right
government
away.
would that happen?
In the first months.
You've taken a lot of heat on C-51, and most people feel that it costs your party over the last year its position in the early polls. Do you regret any part of that decision?
No, I don't. I don't, and I'll tell you why. Mr. Harper wants us to be fearful that there might be a terrorist hiding behind any given tree. Mr. Mulcair wants for us to be fearful for our rights and freedoms. I've said no, we're going to do those both together, and we're going to do it in a responsible way. We are in a very polarized and polarizing political context right now, but that shouldn't prevent us from having responsible, measured positions, and that's exactly what it is, that the Liberal Party will protect freedoms and protect our security at the same time, as we did in the years following 9/11, as we've always been able to do.
ISIS. Do you carry on the campaign against ISIS with any changes? There have been suggestions from you in the last few months that there are things you would do differently. You'd call the planes back. What would you do?
It is extremely important that Canada continues to be part of the fight against ISIS. We need to make sure that we are part of the international efforts to degrade and stop these horrible terrorists. The best way to do that, however, is something in which I've fundamentally disagreed with Mr. Harper. I don't think that the planes are the right mission for Canada. I believe that, first of all, as we're seeing in Europe right now, the massive refugee and humanitarian crisis that's going on, Canada needs to step up much more in terms of refugees, accepting more into Canada. We've talked about 25,000.
How does that degrade ISIS?
Well, that actually...
I appreciate the refugee problem, but in
looks,
degrading, which you say you want to keep doing, how do you degrade ISIS without...
That's the third part of our thing.
Okay.
First are the refugees, because you recognize that if we're going to have any long-term stability in that region, we need to help people with the camps. We need to be supporting them there. We need humanitarian efforts that is going to continue to allow people to get through some of the very difficult times they're in right now. And we have to be part of training the local troops on the ground in order to carry the fight effectively against ISIS.
That hasn't worked for 10 years.
Well, you know what else hasn't worked is sending Western troops into actually doing the fighting for them. That's why we got into this mess in George W. Bush's first.
So you don't have an answer on the degrading?
Well, absolutely. You make sure that the Kurds, for example, are able to fight to take back their territories. You work with them in a much greater way than we're doing right now, and not make things worse. And quite frankly, that's exactly where this government has failed.
When one looks at every survey that's done right now, we've still got a ways to go, but every survey would suggest that it's a race between three parties for the top position, that anything could happen and that anybody could win, but that it's almost certainly a minority government. So let's have the minority government discussion, and I know you don't like to go there, but let me try it from a different way. Is your belief that whatever party has the most number of seats has the right to try to govern at that point?
Yes, that's the way it's always been. Whoever commands the most seats gets the first shot at governing.
Well, it's not always the way it's been. I mean,
that's pretty much always. Whoever gets the most seats gets the first shot at trying to command the confidence of the House.
Well, actually, the first shot goes to the outgoing
to the
party.
Outgoing Prime Minister, absolutely.
In fact, it was your father who
in
you
72,
disagree with on
in
some
72,
things, and in
yes.
79, who suggested in the middle of the campaign that he felt that it's not automatic, that the governing party has a right to see what its options are.
I think the reality is there is such a clear desire for change amongst Canadians right now that Mr. Harper will have a very difficult time commanding the confidence of the House after this election, after these 10 years of failings that he's had.
So whichever party that is, could be you, could be one of the others, would be looking for the support of Parliament to try and govern. So when you look at the other two parties, if you don't win, does it make any difference to you which of those two ends up with the most seats?
Oh, I think it makes a tremendous difference what those parties are. I mean, Mr. Harper and his Conservative Party have put forward an agenda that has hurt Canadians for 10 years, has not invested in the kind of growth we need. And on the other hand, Mr. Mulcair, as people are beginning to discover, is promising cuts and is not going to create the kind of growth that we need.
But are you saying you couldn't choose between those two if you had to, either to support them or to ask for their support?
No. The nice thing about elections is that it's Canadians who get to choose who they send to Ottawa, and people in Ottawa have to figure out how to provide the best possible government to Canadians, and that's what I'm focused on. And I'm going to let pundits sort of calculate what the different odds of this are. I'm looking forward to forming a strong government for Canadians, and I will take the support of whoever supports our plan to invest in the future of Canada.
But of those two parties, is there a lesser of two evils? Because you made it sound like they're equal in terms of your dislike of their positions.
Well, I think both of their positions are wrong. Both of them want to continue a failed approach on austerity and cuts that Canada doesn't need.
The last question I have for you is one that I'll put to each of the other leaders. It's not about your party, it's not about your policies, but it's about you. What is it about you that you feel should make you a prime minister?
This country is one of the most incredible countries in the world, if not the most. I mean, I know I'm horribly biased, but I have had the opportunity to meet with Canadians, to get to know them, to live in all different parts of this country. And I've seen that for 10 years, we have become less than what we could have. I mean, if I have one real point of distinction between me and Mr. Harper, it's in his lack of ambition for this country.
But on you personally, what is it about Justin Trudeau that makes you the person that should lead Canada?
If you want to find out if someone's ready for this job, ask them what they want to do with this job. And my focus is on growing this country again the right way, making us united, keeping us safe, and giving everyone a real and fair chance to succeed. And my work throughout my life with Canadians has prepared me to be able to offer that to people.
Mr. Trudeau, thanks for your time.
My pleasure.